Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report and a company update from Vizsla Silver, chatting with Mike Konnert, the president and CEO. We have a couple pretty important news releases to recap here. We have a test mining update from the Copala Test Mine at Panuco, as well as some major financing news as the company announced and closed a $100 million bought deal financing. Vizsla Silver is traded on the NYSE and the TSX under the symbol VZLA. Mike, let's start off with the test mining update. Look, there's a lot of technical information in that news release. It was released June 18th. Talks about the decline that is now 125 meters along. Talks about the 10,000 ton bulk sample that will be taken from the 460 level. Mike, just from a high level aspect, how is this progressing according to the schedule and the plans you guys had around this?
Yeah, no, it's going very well. And I actually just got back late last night from the project and was underground there. We're about 140 meters progressed along the decline. And I can tell you it's the best underground mine that I've seen. It looks incredible. The team is doing an incredible job, and the ventilation and ground support and everything there is incredible. So it's great to see. And the real reason that we've done this is to de-risk the project significantly. So this is done under basically the exploration permitting allowances in Mexico. And so we were able to permit this rapidly. And, although we're not producing from the material that we're mining, we are actually mining. So we're basically skipping ahead a few phases here where we're able to not only test the contractors that we're using, but test our team, make sure our team is ready for mining so that when we get our full permits, construct the mill, that we've hit the ground mining running and we've de-risked, the startup of the mine. This is, allowing us to mine earlier. So this also de-risks in another way, in the sense that it allows us to get down to the 460 level, which is really, not a very far distance from surface, but it allows us to stockpile ore and material that will go through the mill above surface. And so if you think about that logically, if you're a new company that's a newly producing company that's aiming to start up a mine and a mill all at the same time, invariably things go wrong. And it's not a knock on the team. It's just, anytime you have a startup of something complex like a mine, there's little problems that you need to solve. So we're doing this now ahead of the construction of the mill so that when the mill is running, we'll have a large amount of material stockpiled above surface that can be divided into different grades, high grade, medium grade, and low grade. And then that can be run through the mill, and we'll have a real good handle on things like grade control, but also mining rates, because we'll already be underground and have done that development ahead of time. So this is critical for de-risking the project. It's what project finance groups like to see as well, but it's what shareholders should want to see, because it allows us to have more control over our destiny. And of course, the money that we've just raised recently will allow us, once we have those permits, to just continually keep mining as we move towards constructing the mill and then finally producing from this ore through the mill.
Okay, so now that you're getting to the point where you will start to extract this bulk sample, what news do we watch out for that, I guess, validates the economics, validates the block models, all the mining aspects that you have put together? What news do we watch out for to say, okay, everything does seem to be falling into place here?
Yeah, I think the regular updates that we'll see out of the test mine have to do with our progress. So it's, those intervals of progression measured in meters of the decline. And then once we hit the Copala vein, we'll make announcements around that. Later, there'll be reconciliation to our drilling. So, understanding how the model fits against what the vein shows, but we expect that to be, a true reconciliation where we've done a lot of close space drilling, so that'll be great. The Panuco district always surprises what we found, and surprises to the upside. And so there's I would say there's a high probability that we intersect new pieces of mineralization along the way and potentially make new discoveries. There's the Morgan vein that we've mapped on surface, and there's likely some depth extensions through that test mine through the decline that we're doing. So there's things like that could be quite exciting. But really, this is a bit of a transition here as we go from and it's an important transition, but go from advanced exploration into development and soon to be shovel ready when we get our permits and full financing in place. This is how you go from trading at a discount to your net asset value, that is to say, a discount to the true value of the project, to then moving closer to a full value, a one times net asset value, say a full value of what we have here. And then once you get closer to cash flow for silver companies, because they're so rare and these assets are so scarce, you actually get paid, the market pays you a premium to your net asset value. And so this is kind of that exact situation unfolding before our eyes and in real time here. So, having, as I said, just got back from site, it's really encouraging and exciting to see the progress of the team. Our team at Vizsla is incredible. They've done excellent work. The team's working really well together, and it's really rewarding to see how it's all coming together at site.
Okay, so when you start stockpiling, or there are a couple other things that you're going to do, as you said, the mill, constructing the mill, and also some of that underground drilling to more or less validate the resources you have and improve the confidence categories. When do those come into play?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we will be setting up drill stations underground, and we'll be doing more drilling from underground. That'll be probably more of a conversion from indicated to measured, or from lower categories into reserves, so we can see our, mineable resource that can be calculated in a reserve. We can see that grow as the test mine continues and the drilling may continue. So that's quite exciting. And then, there's also the potential for metallurgical testing and that type of thing, but that probably won't continue, or probably won't have effect until later in the year, perhaps going into 2026. So, the next half of the year into the following year. And, as far as, what we're seeing from permits, our expectation is to receive the permit within the first half of, I would say, by the middle point of 2026. That's the indication that we've been given in our presentations, and that's what we see as possible. I mean, there's sometimes the case for optimism around permitting in Mexico, and certainly we've been given reasons to be optimistic around that by the government of Mexico. We've had excellent meetings, and we've submitted our permits application. So there's a lot to like, and it's moving very swiftly towards permitting. But in our time frame, it's likely midpoint of next year, so about a year from now. But in between that time, of course, like I said, we'll be doing the test mine de-risking, but also very importantly, doing more exploration. And, I think you do get a multiple, as I said, as you get closer and closer to production on your NAV, or you trade closer to NAV. But there's ways to grow that NAV, and that's certainly by exploration drilling. And we're doing that with drills currently at the La Colorada target. We're planning on, having more news and more drilling at the Animus target that we made the discovery at earlier this year. So there's, outside of just, project number one, which is the PEA area, which will soon be the feasibility study area, the mine plan area, that will grow, I believe, and there'll be other centers of mass growing across this district as well. So lots of ways for the value of Vizsla to continue to increase, and for the share price to continue to rise from here.
Okay, so that exploration, I'm sure we'll be talking about as we get more news on that. But one other de-risking activity that you completed at the end of June here was that financing, $100 million. Walk us through what that means for the total cost of building this mine. How well financed are you for the full mine build?
Yeah, so we're in an excellent position now with our cash position. So we have about $200 million USD in the bank. And if you recall, our CapEx is around $224 million USD. Now, of course, there's expenses relating to exploration and the test mine and even G&A and things like that. We have a large group of people at the project. So it's not like we just have to raise $224 million and that's it. Of course, you need to have amount that's in excess of that capex. So, this puts us in a really, really strong position where this cash position will basically, I mean, that'll be the last equity financing that we have to do because we're looking at project finance from various sources. So, I suspect that by the end of this year, we'll be in a position where the feasibility study has been released and full project financing has been committed. Another way to say that is we'll be fully financed, but we'll be in a very strong position, stronger than most companies, stronger than probably any company that I can recall in recent years because of this excellent cash position. And one of the reasons that we chose to raise this money now is because we can tell people after that project finance is in place that that there is no equity coming. There's no other way to buy the shares other than in the market. And we take that overhang or that expectation of future financings after project financing away from the market, from the expectation. So it puts us in a really strong position in addition to, that just having that cash on hand and being funded for all these objectives. It also puts us in a really strong position to negotiate that project finance because, we're not as reliant on debt or other methods of financing, as it's very clear we have a very strong cash position. So there's a lot of strength that comes out of this. And I expect this to be a very strong message to the market that not only are we in a secure position financially, but we brought in a lot of very strong shareholders in this last financing who are very happy. And of course, expect a premium to the price that they came in at, which was $3 US.
So what about other financing options then? If you do need to raise, if you already have 200 million in the bank US right now, what other options do you have to backfill whatever that other total might be?
Well, for the last 18 months, we've been very aggressive and advanced in basically running a process to find partners to help us finance the next steps. So we're getting very close to those final stages. And so, there's options, of course, that are typical in this industry, which would include project finance debt and other types of fully financed options from various groups. And I think they'll be very friendly to the shareholder. And one of the reasons we wanted to raise this cash here is that because these groups often, once you enter into an agreement, they prefer that you don't spend as much money on exploration and spend money on construction and getting the cash flow as fast as possible so that you can de-risk their loans. And with this cash on hand now, we have ample capital to allocate towards exploration, which means growth that'll be outside of that purview of a project finance partner. So that means that we'll have a much larger budget to go explore places like Santa Fe, which we believe could be the second growth center for the company. So, we have a window of a couple of years of exploration there where we can explore and build resources. And then once the build team is coming off of project number one, we can take that build team and put it on Santa Fe, expand that mill, and show the potential for another, say, 10 million ounces of silver equivalent coming out of Santa Fe. Additionally, we have the Lagara project to the north, and we want to put some money into exploring that. But also these excellent discoveries that we've made and potential discoveries that we're hoping to make going forward, we'll have a lot more capital that we can put towards what we call organic growth or exploration going forward.
So, Mike, one question I got on the back of this financing news too, and some people thinking essentially that you're cashed up for that whole mine build. What does it mean for being a takeover target? There are shareholders out there that would like some sort of a takeover, some liquidity event. Can you give us any lay of the land? Are you still a takeover target in your eyes?
Yeah, I would imagine that this would increase the interest levels by potential counterparties. It shows that the project's being more and more de-risked. The cash that we have on hand is probably attractive, I would imagine, as well. But of course, we don't believe that we're valued at a level that would be acceptable to shareholders here to be taken over at. If we're trading at 0.5 times NAV, which is to say we're trading at half of our net asset value, and we have $200 million US in the bank, we only have a few short steps to go before we're trading at 1 times NAV or a premium. And, that is to say twice the value that we are right now. So it's not an opportune time for us to entertain these things. And what we're doing is focusing very, very hard on moving safely, calmly, but very rapidly towards that full net asset value and later a premium as we continue on that path. So if you look at the NAV multiples that Silvercrest, Meg Silver, and Gatos received, it was basically on average 1.8 times net asset value. So if you look at us trading today at 0.5 times NAV, that's a huge delta between what we think we're valued at and where we trade at today. So there's a lot more room to go.
All right, Mike, thank you for addressing these questions, and thank you everyone for sending in these questions. Always fun to talk with Mike about Vizsla Silver because, well, it just keeps on advancing at this Panuco project. Also, these other areas that you are drilling exploration wise, but I know a lot of focus on this development of the mine and the progress there. So, Mike, I'll follow up with you as we get more drill results and other news. But in the meantime, thank you very much for this update.
Thank you, Corey. Great to chat.